I can start. So you were talking a lot about how previous generations of Canadians said yes to big projects. What do you think changed?
I think that in some regards, and I made notice of a book that I read about unelected power, but you can see that, is that in some instances politicians are deferring or passing on tougher decisions to their bureaucracy or the courts, or in the case of the financial crisis to central banks. And I think that tone at the top matters, and this industry is on its back here. Tone at the top matters, a helping hand matters. The industry is important to all Canadians and the Canadian economy at large. And that's the point I was trying to make, is we have to get big projects done. There has to be an expedited treatment for some of these things in a fair, transparent way where, environmental, regulatory, everything's done in a transparent fashion. But we can't take 10 and 12 years to do some of these projects. It just doesn't work. You're not going to be able to attract capital. You're not going to be able to build the projects. It's that simple. Capital will go elsewhere.
You don't think the federal government's doing enough in that regard then?
I'm not going to pinpoint any. I would put it on all governments, that governments need a strategy, and it shouldn't be just around an election cycle. It should be about what's right for the province, what's right for the country, and how do we get things done.
You alluded to Jason Kenney's pledge earlier this week to cut the corporate tax rate in Alberta, I think by a third by 2022, which would make it the lowest in Canada, and I think lower than all but 7 of the U.S. states. Is that drastic of a cut truly necessary, and is that specific to Alberta to address Alberta's challenges, do you think?
Well, I think it's, I wasn't advocating the tax cut other than it would be good for business and good for entrepreneurs, but lower taxes attract capital. And I think I haven't spoken to Mr. Kenney about it, but I think what he's trying to do is set a marker down saying we're open for business and we're here to attract capital. And this is important. The economy of Alberta is on its back and needs some help, and we need to attract capital to get things going.
One of the things, you even mentioned it here again, is the tone at the top matters. How it pertains to sort of SNC and the energy sector here, we just sort of get your take on that, and then the idea that Mr. Butts, we've seen someone sort of fall on the sword for the East Coast, but not here on the energy sector.
I'm not going to make a comment on the political question in Ottawa. Now, my question of tone of the top is provinces and the federal government need a specific economic strategy or policy. It just can't be tactical in terms of one day we're doing this and we're going to put this in a budget next time. It's what do you want? What do we want the country to look like? How are we going to create jobs? Do we have the skills? Get business, universities, and government going in the same direction. That's the point.
You talked about your bullishness on the energy sector.
Yeah.
And at the same time, when a lot of its fortunes seem to be in the hands of either regulators, courts, some in Canada, some outside of Canada, this looks like an industry that's been disrupted. What should it do to, kind of move past this malaise that it's in right now?
Well, look, I think in a lot of regards is it goes back to my comment about economic policy or energy policy. Why wasn't the infrastructure built 15 or 20 years ago? Why are we still talking about, the original Trans Mountain Pipeline was built in 1955. At some juncture they knew they'd need additional capacity. So it takes longer term planning, strategic thought in terms of building these. So I don't think, you can talk about the Permian Basin and there's always going to be a hot play that comes and goes, but the world needs Canada's energy. We have to get it to Tidewater and get it to the people that need it, whether it's Korea, Japan, China, India. I think the LNG project in Kitimat is a really important step in that direction. I think it's going to be wonderful for British Columbia. It will have spin-off effects for Alberta. It'll be great for Canada.
You talked about diversity and the importance of diversification, and states that actually looked at going beyond their traditional industries. Alberta's looking at petrochemical development, upgrading encouragement. Is that, how would you respond to that sort of idea?
Well, look, I think it's great, and I think there's 3 different plants or facilities that are in some sort of stages of being developed or built. I think that's good, and it's a natural step in terms of Alberta being an energy economy, but it's got to go beyond that. You know, the Alberta economy has to diversify, has to look at other industries. You know, there's a huge skilled labor force here of people with good technical skills, engineers, geologists, geophysicists. How do we, retrain those people, those skill sets into technology and other industries? That was my point.
One of the ways that a lot of analysts and investors have said that the energy industry here could be more resilient in tough times like it's currently experiencing is by consolidating. That would help them sort of better allocate capital.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that idea that consolidation would make them stronger, and are you seeing any signs that any move towards that is underway?
Well, usually when you see an industry go through a difficult time, whether it's mining, whether it's oil and gas, or some industrial sector, there is some form of consolidation. And, there's advantages to that in terms of capital allocation, et cetera. So I wouldn't be surprised to see more consolidation in the Canadian energy sector at this stage. I think you'll see some of that during 2019.
You talk a little bit about misinformation and how it's even come up at Scotiabank's own meetings. Can you be more specific? What sort of things are people saying that aren't true?
Yeah, no, I just think that, this is an industry under a lot of pressure for a variety of different reasons. I think people have been, the detractors from the industry have been very sophisticated, have a lot of funding, and have been able to make their point, not necessarily with all the correct facts. And I think the industry has been slow to react to that, and has kind of been caught on their back foot. And so I was saying, look, this is you need a communication strategy. And I say that from, banks aren't, sometimes aren't the most popular industries around, because we're a unique industry, because sometimes we have to say no. We have to say, no, you're taking on too much debt, or you should think about doing this. So the industry has to be more coordinated in its communication.